We've all heard the stories. The ones whispered around dying campfires. The ones typed frantically into forums at 2 a.m. by users who never post again. They're cautionary tales about the witching hour, that liminal space between night and day when the veil is thin, and things that should stay hidden decide to take a stroll. We listen. We get a little thrill, a little chill down our spine, and then we dismiss it. It's just a story. It's just the woods. It's just your imagination. I used to be like you. My name is Dan, and I'm here to tell you that it is not just a story. What happens in the woods at 3 a.m. is so much worse, so much more profoundly and intimately terrifying than your most fevered nightmares could ever conjure. It's not about a monster with fangs or a ghost with a tragic backstory. It's about something that uncreates you, that uses the very fabric of your memory and your soul against you. And it knows when you're listening. It started, as these things often do, with a stupid dare. My friends and I, Leo, Mark and Chloe, we were what you'd call amateur urban explorers. We'd break into old sanitariums, traipse through abandoned factories, the usual fare for bored 20-somethings chasing a cheap adrenaline rush. We filmed it all for a YouTube channel that had a modest but dedicated following of fellow weirdos. We thought we were brave. We were idiots. The seed was planted by a user comment on our video about the old Blackwater Mill. The username was just a string of numbers, 73411. The comment was simple. If you want real fear, go to the Absalom Tract. Go to the Walker's cabin. Stay until 3:07 a.m. Listen for the chimes. We laughed it off. Another internet crazy. But the comment nagged at me. The Absalom Tract was a vast, state-protected woodland a few hours north of where we lived. It was famously pristine and famously restricted. No camping, no off-trail hiking. It was a nature preserve in the truest sense, and the rangers were notoriously aggressive in keeping it that way. The mystery was irresistible. Leo, our resident skeptic and tech guy, did some digging. "There's nothing," he said, staring at his laptop. "No records of any Walker family. No permits for a cabin. The whole area was bought by the state in the 50s from a timber company. It's just woods. Perfect," Mark grinned. Mark was our muscle, a gym rat who loved the thrill of trespassing more than the history. No one around to hear us scream. Chloe, the heart of our group, and the only one with a shred of genuine sense, was hesitant. "This feels different, guys." The comment, it was so specific. 3:07, not 3 o'clock, not 3:15. 3:07, that's weird. "Weird is our brand, Chloe," I said, already packing batteries for the cameras. "It's probably just some ARG, some alternate reality game. We go, we film a bunch of trees, get spooked by a raccoon, and come home with a killer video. The mystery of the Absalom Tract. It'll get 1 million views." I wish I could go back and slap the arrogance off my own face. We drove up on a crisp Friday in October. The air was sharp with the smell of pine and decay. We parked our beat-up Jeep about a mile from the preserve's boundary, camouflaged it with branches, and started the hike in. The forest was unnervingly silent, not peaceful, but watchful. The dense canopy choked out the afternoon sun, casting the world in a perpetual gloomy twilight. Our GPS units flickered, the signals weak and unreliable. After hours of bushwhacking through thick undergrowth, following vague coordinates Leo had triangulated from old survey maps, we found it. The cabin. It wasn't imposing. It was a squat, crumbling thing made of rough-hewn logs. sinking into the forest floor like a rotten tooth. The roof sagged in the middle, and the single window was a dark, empty eye socket. There was no door, just a black rectangular opening. The silence here was even thicker, a physical pressure on the eardrums. "Well, there it is," Mark said, his bravado slightly muted. "The walker's cabin. Doesn't look like much." "It's small," Chloe whispered, her hand finding mine. Her fingers were ice cold. "We set up our base camp 100 yards away. A safe distance, we thought." As dusk began to bleed into night, we did a preliminary sweep of the cabin with the cameras. The interior was one room, empty, save for a rusted iron bed frame, a crumbling brick fireplace, and a thick layer of dust and animal droppings. There were no personal effects, no signs of who might have lived here. It was utterly anonymous, and that, in itself, was unsettling. Night fell with an abrupt finality. We huddled around a small, low-burning campfire. The rules of the preserve be damned. The temperature plummeted. The forest, so silent by day, now came alive with sounds. But they were wrong. The rustles in the bushes were too deliberate. The snap of a twig sounded like a footstep placed with careful precision. The wind, when it whispered through the pines, didn't sound like wind. It sounded like voices, murmuring just on the edge of comprehension. "Okay, I'm officially creeped out," Leo admitted, checking the audio levels on his recorder. "I'm picking up some weird interference." A low hum. "It's probably just power lines or something," I said, trying to sound convincing. "There are no power lines for 30 miles, Dan," he replied, not looking up from his screen. The plan was simple. At 2:30 a.m., Mark and I would go to the cabin and set up a stationary camera inside, facing the doorway. We'd all be linked via walkie-talkies. Then, we'd wait. We'd wait for 3:07 a.m. The hours dragged. Every minute felt like an hour. The cold seeped into our bones. Our jokes fell flat, replaced by a tense, watchful silence. At 2:25 a.m., my watch alarm vibrated. Mark and I shared a look, then stood up. "Remember," Chloe said, her face pale in the firelight. "You're just setting the camera and getting out." "No heroics. Don't worry," I said, forcing a smile. "We'll be back before you know it." The walk to the cabin in the pitch black was a trial in terror. Our headlamps carved out weak cones of light, making the shadows they created seem even darker and more malevolent. The sounds of the forest had stopped again. It was that same suffocating silence we'd encountered when we first found the place. We reached the doorway. The darkness within was absolute, a solid thing. I shone my light inside. Nothing. Just the same empty room. "Okay, quick and quiet," I whispered to Mark. We stepped inside. The air was stale and cold, colder than the air outside. It smelled of damp earth and something else, something metallic and coppery, like old blood. We mounted a small high-definition camera on the iron bed frame, pointing it at the door. My hands were shaking so badly it took me 3 tries to secure the clamp. Fzz-t. The sound was soft, electronic, and came from my pocket. I pulled out my digital watch. The screen was flickering, the numbers scrambling. 2:58, 11:14, 7:82. Then it went blank. Mark tapped my arm and pointed to his own wrist. His fancy smartwatch was also dead. A deep, primal fear, one I had never felt before, began to uncoil in my gut. This wasn't part of the plan. This was real. Crack. The sound came from right outside the door. It wasn't a twig snapping. It was loud, percussive, like a thick branch being shattered by immense force. We froze. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I looked at Mark. His eyes were wide, his face a mask of pure terror. He pointed a trembling finger towards the door. Slowly, I turned my head. Standing just outside the doorway, silhouetted against the slightly less black forest, was a figure. It was tall, impossibly so, maybe 7 or 8 feet. Its limbs were too long and too thin, jointed in ways that seemed wrong, like the legs of a deer or a spider. It was utterly still. I couldn't make out any features, just a humanoid shape of pure, depthless black that seemed to drink the light from our headlamps. It didn't move. It just stood there, watching us. "Run," Mark breathed, the word barely audible. We didn't need telling twice. We bolted, not towards the door where the thing stood, but towards the back of the cabin. Mark, in his panic, slammed shoulder first into the rotten log wall. The wood splintered, giving way. We scrambled through the new hole, tearing our clothes on the jagged edges, and ran. We ran without looking back, without a thought for the cameras or our friends. We ran like animals, driven by a terror that bypassed all reason. We didn't stop until we crashed back into our camp, gasping for air, our chests heaving. Leo and Chloe jumped to their feet. "What happened?" Chloe cried. "We heard a crash. Your walkies went dead." "There's something out there," I panted, bent double, hands on my knees. At the cabin, Mark was hyperventilating, pointing back the way we came. "A thing. A fucking thing." We spent the next hour in a state of heightened panic, clutching our knives and staring into the darkness, expecting that tall, slender shape to emerge from the trees at any moment. But nothing happened. The forest was, once again, silent. As the first grey light of dawn tinged the horizon, a semblance of courage returned. "We need to get the camera," Leo said quietly. "We need to see what we caught." The thought made me nauseous, but he was right. We had to know. The walk back to the cabin in the dim morning light was somehow worse than the night before. Every shadow was a threat. The cabin looked even more forlorn and sinister in the cold light of day. We approached with caution, our knives held out in front of us like pathetic talismans. The stationary camera was still on the bed frame, its little red recording light glowing steadily. The figure was gone. There was no sign that anything had been there at all. We packed up our camp with frantic speed and hiked back to the Jeep in record time. No one spoke. The relief of being back in the metal shell of the vehicle was immense. We drove for an hour before any of us said a word. "Play it," Chloe said, her voice hollow. Leo, in the passenger seat, connected the camera to his laptop. The video file popped up. He hit play. The footage was shaky at first, as Mark and I were setting it up. Then it stabilized, showing the empty doorway and a slice of the dark forest beyond. The timestamp in the corner glowed. 2:59:01, 2:59:02. We watched ourselves on screen, our faces pale and scared in the camera's night vision mode. We saw the moment our watches died. We saw our heads snap towards the door at the sound of the crack. And then we saw it. The figure stepped into frame, stopping just outside the doorway. The night vision didn't make it clearer. If anything, it made it worse. It was a blurry, pixelated shape of washed out green and white, its proportions even more horrifyingly wrong. Its head was too small for its body, and it had no face, just a smooth, featureless oval. We watched ourselves freeze. We watched Mark whisper, "Run." We watched us scramble towards the back of the cabin and break through the wall. And then the figure moved. It didn't walk. It glided, with an unnatural fluid motion, into the center of the room. It stood where we had been standing just moments before. It was then that we saw the source of the sound the comment had mentioned. Hanging from a thin, almost invisible cord around its neck was a small, tarnished silver bell. The figure stood perfectly still for a long moment, its faceless head seeming to scan the empty room. Then, it slowly raised one of its long, spindly arms. Its fingers, too many and too long, closed around the bell. It rang it, not a loud, clanging ring. It was a soft, clear, crystalline chime, a single, pure note that seemed to hang in the air, vibrating not through the room, but through my very soul. The timestamp on the video read 3:07:00. The chime faded. The figure lowered its arm. And then, it did the most terrifying thing of all. It turned its head, slowly, deliberately, and it looked directly into the camera. It had no eyes, but I felt its gaze. It was a gaze of infinite cold, of ancient, indifferent malice. It knew we were watching. It knew we were watching now. The screen erupted into a blizzard of static, and the video cut out. We sat in the parked Jeep, the engine still running, in total silence. The fear had been replaced by something else, something deeper and more desolate, a profound cosmic dread. "We don't talk about this," Mark finally said, his voice rough. "We delete the footage. We forget any of this ever happened." For once, no one argued. That was 6 months ago. We tried to move on. We got normal jobs, drifted apart. The Absalom Tract became a forbidden memory, a shared nightmare we never discussed. But the thing is, you can't just forget. It doesn't let you. It started with small things. I'd wake up at exactly 3:07 a.m., my heart pounding for no reason. I'd catch a whiff of that damp, coppery cabin smell in my own apartment. My digital clocks would sometimes flicker and die, just for a second. Then the dreams began. Vivid, repetitive dreams of standing in that cabin, the tall figure standing in the doorway, ringing its bell. In the dream, when it chimed, I couldn't move. I could only watch as it glided towards me, its featureless face inches from mine. I'd wake up screaming, the sound of the chime still echoing in my ears. I thought I was going crazy. I started seeing a therapist who diagnosed me with severe PTSD. She said my mind was trying to process a traumatic event. I wanted to believe her. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from Leo. He sounded terrible, his voice thin and reedy. "Dan," he whispered, "it's happening to you too, isn't it?" My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "The chimes, Dan. I hear them. In my house. At 3:07 a.m. I look at the clock and I hear them." He was crying now. Soft, hopeless sobs. "It's getting closer. I can smell it. I can smell the cabin in my bedroom." We talked for an hour, sharing our symptoms, our terror feeding off each other. He said Mark had moved across the country, changed his number, and cut all ties. Chloe had checked herself into a psychiatric ward, claiming she was being stalked by a shadow man. I hung up, feeling more alone and terrified than ever. That night, the dream was different. I was in the cabin, but this time, the figure didn't approach me. It simply stood by the door, rang its bell, and pointed one of its long, spindly fingers at my chest. When I looked down, I saw my own skin was becoming transparent. I could see my ribs, my lungs, my beating heart. And my heart wasn't red anymore. It was black, and it was covered in a fine silvery dust like tarnish on an old bell. I woke up, not screaming, but gasping. The room was freezing, and on my nightstand, clear as day, was the faint, shimmering imprint of a single, long-fingered handprint in the dust. That's when I knew. It wasn't a memory. It wasn't PTSD. It was a mark, a claim. We had gone into its territory, and it had followed us out. It was slowly, patiently pulling us back. 3 days ago, Leo's sister found me on social media. Leo was dead. He had drowned himself in his bathtub. The note he left was a single scrawled sentence. The chimes are inside me now. I know I'm next. I can feel it. The world is starting to feel thin. Colors are less vibrant. Sounds are muffled. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, my reflection seems to flicker, and for a split second, I see that featureless oval face staring back at me. The smell of damp earth and tarnished metal is my constant companion now. It's in my food, in my clothes, in the air I breathe. I'm writing this down as a warning. Not to stay out of the woods at 3 a.m. That's just the delivery method, the vector. This thing, this bell keeper, this Absalom walker, it doesn't just live in the woods. It lives in the silence between seconds. It feeds on attention. By reading this, by letting the story into your head, you've given it a foothold, a scent. You'll dismiss it. You'll tell yourself it's just a story, a well-written creepypasta by a guy named Dan. You'll go to bed tonight, and you'll forget about it. But tonight, when you wake up for no reason, check the clock. If it's 3:07 a.m., don't listen for the chimes. Please, for the love of God, don't listen. Because if you do, you'll hear it. A soft, clear, crystalline chime, coming from the corner of your room, from the hallway, from right beside your bed. And once you've heard it, it knows you, and it will start its work on you, pulling at the threads of your reality, unraveling you until there's nothing left but the memory of a sound and the desperate, fading knowledge that what happens in the woods at 3 a.m. is so much worse than you could ever think. It's happening to me. The chimes are inside me now. I can feel them, vibrating in my bones, tarnishing my soul. My fingers are feeling longer. The light hurts my eyes. I think I need to find a nice, quiet, dark place. It's 3:06, I have to go. I think I hear my bell.